Good evening. Danielle here from Transcendence to the Truth. Tonight, we are going to talk about a topic of conversation I don't generally bring up on my Facebook very often. And that is co-parenting or dealing with narcissistic personalities. I basically chose intentionally to step away from this because I spent quite a lot of time focusing and talking about it, and I had found my own ways of dealing with it and my own levels of awareness and consciousness around this sort of dynamic that I guess what I share with you tends to be what has some sort of relevance in my life. But tonight I felt that it would be beneficial for a lot of people that have co-parenting situations. I know that I have a lot of beautiful, empathic and intuitive people that follow me, so hello. This is also actually very useful information for anyone dealing with just narcissists in general. Will help you to find some ways to not go into resist and react. So make sure you say hi, where you're watching from. 1, if you're watching now, or 2, if you're watching the replay. I've only just sort of gotten into alignment, so I am in a slightly my energy isn't completely in alignment because I still need to find the state of allowance and peace for the situation that I have just been triggered into. I'm just super grateful that I have the tools. And I mean, if you don't know me, I've gone through family court twice. I've had to deal with some pretty freaking horrific co-parenting situations in the past. Things that I haven't been able to share publicly because I could probably get myself into some legal issues. So there's a lot of my story that I don't get to share, but I have a lot of experience in co-parenting with difficult personalities and people that are in a victim mindset, and it is one of the more challenging things that I've had to deal with in my life, and to focus on what truly is in the best interest of either the children and everyone involved. So one of the first things that I always suggest is to anyone who receives any text messages or phone calls or any form of information from a narcissistic personality that triggers them into an emotion, or just any text message, any call, any Facebook post, anything that you receive, even any passed on information through the grapevine. I don't even think I'm a part of a grapevine. Do conscious people do grapevine information? I don't think they do gossip. But if something comes up, basically you would not be human if there was not some form of triggering, usually when you're dealing with a personality like this, because a narcissistic personality is basically someone who is completely emotionally they're not mature. They're not emotionally mature. So they have the emotional intelligence of someone who's just around a teenage to late teens. So like early 20s. They're really not emotionally intelligent, which means that they don't have the capability to actually be anything other than in this opportunist stage or a victim mindset, which means they have the most smallest tunnel vision perspective possible. And it is always, always, always about self-gain and them. Always. They have no concept of thinking outside of their own. The world literally revolves around a narcissistic personality or somebody who is very strongly run by their ego. And there's no wrongness in this. So when I talk about a narcissist, I used to have a lot of judgment around narcissistic personalities. I used to think that narcissists were bad people, and that they were evil and they were manipulative and they did all of these things on purpose. As I've grown and evolved and I've seen and learnt a lot, it actually is not something that I judge anymore. I actually have a lot of compassion for somebody who's in that mindset, because the people that are in that space, they don't have the capacity or the ability to ever be able to, at that point in time, self-reflect and find true happiness within, because they can't come to peace within. They're always projecting and distorting they're always distorting the big picture or the picture to fit into what they see. And that's really sad, because you can't have true connections and you can't have true fulfillment or contentment in life. And so for me, the narcissists that are in my life and people that are very much in a victim mindset, I actually have a lot of compassion and kindness and love for, because I remember what it has been like for me to be so ran by such a strong amount of ego and lack of self-love, and that makes me feel only love and compassion for somebody who really doesn't know any better. And I know that can be uncomfortable for people, and that is not excusing the behavior. So clear boundaries are very important when it comes to dealing with narcissistic personalities. And having a clear boundary is something that is going to take some time for somebody who's been the victim of narcissistic abuse, if you want to call it that, because you probably had no boundaries and you probably allowed everyone to abuse whatever little boundaries you had, because that's why you were put in the situation to begin with. So developing those boundaries is going to be a bit of a challenge, but verbalizing them and communicating them clearly and consciously from a heart-centered space is very important. So when I say to talk, when you want to communicate with any narcissistic personality, you want to ensure that you are not projecting, you are not justifying, you are not going into blame, guilt, you are not victimizing. You need to have the most neutral, super neutral energy. And that is, I believe they actually have a technique called the cold rock, or grey rock. Maybe it's a grey rock. Cold rock's the ice cream store. Technique where you do not give any energy to the situation. You do not add fuel to the fire. So if you receive a text message and something and you're triggered, I always super recommend going into, if you don't have to respond straight away, wait 24 hours, sit with it, do not act. Do not act. Do not act. Sit with it and really reflect on it. So sit with it, take the information, ask yourself, 1, why are you feeling that way? 2, what can you do about it? 3, what's the big picture? And ask yourself things like, why is it affecting me so much? Am I going into my own control stuff? Do I want to try and control them? Do I want to control the situation? Do I want to fight against because I feel I'm wronged by? There's so many different questions you can ask about yourself to just become more whole within yourself. But then you have that time and space to actually sit and feel and sit in the energy and feel the energy and be like, okay, right. Is this something that even requires my attention? Or is it just to upset me? Is it just to trigger me? Is it just to annoy me? Is it just to gain control? Is it to feed you know, to get the attention. It's like a child, really. You really just got to think of these people like children, that they will twist and manipulate things to get what their needs are and what they need met. So whatever attention that is, whatever situations they need to flip and work to them. So it's looking at that and actually seeing it for what it is, rather than going straight into a resist and react and a justification. If there's any accusations made against you, then, you know, look at it. Is it a projection? Is it something that they're trying to deflect the situation for you to not see the truth? It takes a lot of conscious awareness to deal with narcissistic personalities, because it's you're basically dealing with somebody who's totally unconscious. And the best thing to do is to always if you're not agreeable, okay, so I don't want you to be agreeable, but I don't want you to go into fight energy. So the neutral energy is kind of like a business partnership, right? So you always want to communicate in ways where you're thinking about the other person, or you are asking, you know, this is how I see the situation, so this is how I see would be the best interest for the children, we'll use. But that's just my opinion kind of thing. What would you agree to? So when you want to talk to them, you want to give them zero that they can pull apart and throw back at you. Because if there's anything in your messages, and you may need somebody to proofread your messages and go, hey, can you have a look at this? Am I going into like resist and react? Does this sound like because you need to make sure that if you're being completely heart-centered and neutral, you actually gain control of the situation, because there's nothing that somebody can pull out of if you're not defending, fighting, reacting against. There's no way that somebody can use that against you if you don't give the energy back, right? That's what it's all about. It's all about power and control. That's what these kind of people are. It's any form of power and control gives them power of control in their life, gives them validation of self, and makes them feel this fulfillment and freedom that they don't have any other way. So really recognizing that that's their number one intent. It actually has zero to do with the children. It has zero to do with you. It's actually all about fulfilling their own desires and needs. And if you can understand that, then you can sort of step back and have a different perspective when you are receiving their information before you respond. The best way to deal with any narcissist, once you realize you have a narcissist in your life, is to cut them completely. Obviously, if you are co-parenting, the least amount of communication possible. If you have just separated from someone who's narcissistic, then and you keep looping back into what's called the runner-chaser dynamic, which I do not miss. And we are in Mercury retrograde, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people on here are actually going through this right now. The runner-chaser dynamic is a very push and pull energy, and the best way to break the cycle of that and to heal yourself and choose something different is to completely cut ties with anyone who you know is of that. If you cannot have a heart-centered, conscious conversation with someone where you say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, how do you feel, how can we move forward, and there's always projection and blame and victimization, then you are dealing with somebody who has zero ability to self-reflect, and you are fighting a lose-lose battle. So go into surrender and allowance. Surrender and allowance. There is absolutely no point fighting against somebody like that, because you're only going to be fighting against yourself and your own life and causing more issues. So it's looking truly at the big picture, the best interest of the children, not playing into little mind games and little oh God, I've been up since 5 a.m. I've done a lot today and my brain's just not quite with me, so not playing into when someone's poking at you, it's not, poke. It's, oh, okay, cool. I see that they're poking at me, right? I have this awareness they're poking at me because they want me to bite back. But instead of doing that, I'm going to be the conscious and aware one, and I'm going to see what they're doing, and I'm not going to resist and react, and I'm going to step back, and I'm going to center myself, and I'm going to look at how I'm going to approach this situation in a different energy, from a neutral energy, business partnership, always. The least amount of communication possible, the least amount of words possible. You don't have to explain decisions and choices if something doesn't work for you in a certain situation. I mean, a lot of this is individualized as well, of course, but if something doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. You can state it. You don't go into reason and justification around it, because the more you go into reason and justification for your choices, the more you will get pulled into the communication loop and the manipulation cycle, because you are feeding information to somebody who is just trying to manipulate you and flip and control you with your mind. So the least amount of communication, wait time until you talk back. Don't respond if it's not necessary at all. And surrender it. Don't take it on. Don't take on the stuff that it's not yours, it's actually theirs, and see them like a child, because that's really the emotional maturity that I have. That is all I can currently think of right now. I need to go and get some sleep. I hope you all have a beautiful Friday night, and I will talk to you soon. Mwah.